slide, this how we slide. This how we ride, yeah, this how we ride.
Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Podcasters Live. We are super excited to have you here tonight. This is a show where we focus on podcasters, helping them to grow their community and their brand by teaching them how to live stream. Tonight, we are going to be talking about diversity in podcasting. It is a topic that a lot of people don't want to broach. They don't want to talk about it. But just like in almost every other industry, there are issues. And there are things that we could be doing as diverse content creators to actually help our cause, help us out relative to our brand and what we need to do. And we have two dynamic people here tonight that we're going to be talking to. But before that, let's get to the intro. All right. So this topic here tonight, right? This is the week before we get into February, which is Black History Month. And I think this is just a relevant topic for us to talk about. I think it's something that a lot of people want to discuss, but they're kind of maybe a little touchy and they're not sure how to broach this conversation. So we have two amazing people here tonight that we're going to kind of just have a conversation about what does it mean to be a diverse content creator? What can we do to kind of maybe overcome some different obstacles that we probably impose upon ourselves? But also, how can we make sure that we're creating content that people truly want to listen to? So before we get into the spotlight, these are the two individuals, and we're going to be talking to them tonight. I'm super excited to be, I watch so much of their content. Michelle Ngome. She gonna jack me up because I just asked her. She gonna punch me through. She gonna punch me through this lens. I know she is. CL is easy. CL Palmer, from the African American Marketing Association. Both of them, and we're gonna be talking to them shortly here. Hey, here's the thing. If you're looking for a channel to kind of learn a little bit more about live streaming, but also understand the craft of podcasting, we ask that you go to our channel. It's Podcasters Live. It's on YouTube. We are quickly trying to get to 100 subscribers. So if you feel so inclined, go on over to our website, go on over to YouTube, go ahead and also subscribe. And then if you're looking right now, make sure you hit that like button as well too. One of the things that we just talked about when we did the intro, we talked about community. When you're trying to create content, you don't create it in a vacuum, right? You try to create content that other people are going to enjoy. But more importantly, you want to create it in a community where people can give you feedback and they can help you along your journey. Our Facebook group is just that. So our Podcasters Live Facebook group, go over there, check us out. We do a lot of different things over there. We are trying to create a community where people share their thoughts, but also share their journey in a unashamed way. And we're just trying to be there to help you out along your journey so that way your podcast can grow and you can grow your community as well through live streaming. So tonight, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into and introduce these two amazing people. How are you guys doing tonight? I'm gonna use this one. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm good.
Very well.
I'm good.
Excellent. Excellent. You gonna mess me up, Michelle? You gonna jack me up?
I'm coming through the screen.
You come through the screen. Yeah, you know what? I'm horrible. I'm horrible with names, man. It's just bad. It's just bad sometimes. But go ahead.
It's all good. I get it. I'm the same way. And sometimes I'm like, okay, let me practice.
I did. And I was doing that today, but then I was like, I did it both ways. And I was like, is it Ngome or Ngome? I was like, I don't know. I was practicing both of them. Yeah. I was practicing both of them. Well, hey, we're going to go with ladies first. Michelle, we're going to have you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so Michelle Ngome, I'm Cameroon American. I reside in Houston, Texas. I am an inclusive marketing consultant with my company, Line 25 Consulting. And I am the founder of the African American Marketing Association. We started in 2019. We have nearly 500 members. And we also have CL and I, we host the Marketing for the Culture podcast. And basically, every week we talk about marketing topics, the creator economy, and as well as a few interviews here and there. And that's, at least that's what keeps me busy. What about you?
Me? Oh my gosh, everything. Trying to think about all these different platforms and projects and things that we got going on, and we'll get into some of that stuff here in a second. Hey, CL, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, man.
Oh man, Michelle just sounds so polished and ready to rock. She is a public speaker, but when I sit and talk with Michelle, sometimes I'm like, man, I want to be like her when I grow up.
That's right.
But about me, you know, I am a mixed bag of someone who has been out here doing podcasting since around 2013, but also someone who has evolved from being in music all the way to being full-fledged content producer. I do videos, I write blogs, I write SEO content, taglines, you name it. If it's a piece of content that can be published on the internet, I probably have made it or I'm about to make it. So y'all want to come check me out, y'all follow Podtext. Y'all see the logo right there. At Podtext all over the place, man. And get up with me, man. We can make some magic happen.
Excellent, man. Excellent. I did have the pleasure of working with you on some stuff for Podcasters Live, and I appreciate, man. You helped me with some branding stuff. So, yeah, I appreciate that so much, man. So, Michelle, you mentioned something earlier. You talked a little bit about the content creator community and economy, the content creator economy, and I want to talk about that here in a second. But I always start with this question, which is, what is a podcast to you? Because that one right there, that question, I ask it up front all the time, because I think it also sets the tone for everything else that we kind of talk about, because there are probably people in two different, maybe even three different camps on what a podcast is. And I just wanted to get your definition and your perspective on what the podcast is.
A podcast is education or entertainment in audio format.
So no video. That's right. Go ahead.
I'm old school. I've been podcasting since 2014.
Yeah, excellent.
So, preferably audio. And I understand, times have definitely moved forward when it comes to technology. So video's cool.
Yeah.
I will say this caveat though. How I initially consume you is probably how I'm going to stay with you. So there's podcasts that I've been listening since 2014, 20 whatever. And now they have YouTube channels. I do not watch their YouTube channels.
Yeah. That's all right. That's good. That's why I asked the question. Go ahead, CL. What's your definition?
My definition for a podcast is an audio experience that can be consumed without the need for video. That's probably the most concise way I can put it, because I already knew what the follow-up question was going to be. And when it comes to video and podcasting, there's a lot of things you can do with video, but I do think a lot of people out here are making YouTube shows and are making them podcasts.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's good. So I'm old school too. So 2007, I started a podcast. So my buddy and I, we were doing a show on this thing called Blog Talk Radio. I'm dating myself right now, but we started on Blog Talk Radio. You remember that? And and the CEO of the company that we were both working for, he was a technology kind of like forward-thinking type of person, and he was like, "Hey, have you guys heard of podcasts?" And we're like, "What is that? Like, what is that?" And he talked to us about the RSS feed and all this other stuff. And so what we ended up doing was taking the audio from our podcast, putting it into an RSS feed and getting it on a directory, and moving it forward. We did that from 2007 to around 2011, down in Atlanta. Michelle, Michelle thinks everybody's from Atlanta, but I'm just messing with it. I'm just messing with it. So I agree with your with what you're saying as well too. And that's an interesting take, Michelle, that you said the way that you are introduced to someone is going to be the way that you're going to consume them, like kind of going forward. Has there been anybody that you have found in one medium and actually still connected with them like in a different medium, or is that just how you see it?
I think my brain is wired funny. So that's part of the reason. I think it's a matter of preference. And I
Hmm.
think the thing with podcasting, especially early, being an early consumer to my standards early, it allows me to multitask. Whereas depending on the video, I'm probably not gonna multitask. And I'm big on YouTube. I know I watch too many hours on YouTube. Um, but depending when I go to YouTube, I'm usually looking for instructional content.
Right.
So then I find myself taking notes because I'm trying to learn something about my business to grow. I will say this, The Breakfast Club,
Yeah.
I'm always going to watch the YouTube, right?
Yeah.
They were early adopters. And I feel like it really depends on the personality. Like personality and voice.
Hmm.
So one of my favorite podcasters is Jordan Harbinger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love his voice,
Yeah.
right? And I think I get his sense of humor,
He's
but
super
I
dry.
don't think that translates well on video. Great
Mm.
interviewer,
Yeah.
great interviewer,
Yeah.
but when I watch his YouTube, it's just like, but I think I'm a big fan, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm a big Jordan Harbinger fan as well too, and I get he has sort of a Seinfeldish, type of sarcasm, wit, about him that it probably won't translate on video, really well. But the thing about him, of course, he doesn't need to, um, right?
I mean, not at this point, but I remember 2020 or early last year, I was like, "Ooh, his YouTube numbers are low."
Hmm.
So they made some changes probably within the past 3 to 6 months, and he's now getting the YouTube numbers that he deserves with his brand.
Yeah. So, CL, what are some of the things that you are seeing? Because you're a podcast producer and you work with a lot of different podcasts. What are some of the things that you are seeing that they're doing right, and some of the things that they may be doing wrong?
Well, it's a few things. Are you talking about just people who are making podcasts in general?
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so I'll say a few things that I will point out, and I try to be real careful because I don't like to offend nobody. My girl always tells me it's like you just don't know how to talk to people, and I was like, I can't help it. It's like I'm just honest and I'm to the point.
Right.
But honestly, man, I feel like a lot of podcasters right now are jumping on the microphone with zero prep,
Mm.
and they're just talking. They're, sometimes making good conversation, but then somebody goes off on a tangent, and then the podcast, just the whole purpose of it gets diluted.
Mm. Mm.
And I see a lot of people that offer services when it comes to editing, where they say, I'll take out all the ums, the ahs, pauses, and all that stuff. But I'm of the belief that if you did enough prep,
Come on.
you wouldn't need it.
Come on.
Like if you got all of your talking points in front of you when it's time to talk on a podcast, you're going to sound great,
Hmm.
and you wouldn't need all that editing. You could save yourself a few bucks or time if you're editing yourself.
Yeah.
So that's my number one.
Hmm.
Um, I think the other thing that I think people really need to either make a decision is like, are you going to edit your own podcast, or do you want someone to edit your podcast?
Right. Right.
Because I see a lot of software out here that makes it real easy to
Hmm.
put a podcast together. But then when you need to change one thing, then all of a sudden you're kind of stuck.
Right.
Everything doesn't sync up quite as much. The timing isn't quite right. And man, I love the fact that Silicon Valley is embracing podcasting full on.
Mm-hmm.
But some of this software out here is kind of scamish.
Yeah.
It's not quite ready for prime time, but because people need it and they need to be flexible, they need to be in the cloud, they can spin up an app and say it's a podcast editor, but you can't really even take stuff, an intro from one thing and put it next to the other one, and kind of just make your workflow easy.
Right. Right.
And so I want people to just be aware that when you start to pick your apps, that you find something that not only are you comfortable with, but also can give you room to grow and maybe learn a few things. Me myself, I'm tried and true industry. I use Adobe Audition, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And I even recommend it for anybody who's just starting out. Like it's a little cumbersome, but after you go through the tutorial, it's easy.
Yeah. 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 Those are some great points. I think, you know, even like learning different things, like when you're recording and you stumble on a word, right? To pause, right? Or make it like a clap. That typically you do that like for videos. Or what I've learned is to just have a nice pause. And then when I'm editing, I know exactly that's where, and then I start over from that point on. And I just little techniques like that will help your overall editing process. But I love what you said initially, right? Is just because it goes back to your first point about just getting on the microphone and not really having a plan. Because I think the tendency is that the thing with podcasting, I was just talking to two of my good podcasting friends today actually, and we are just talking about the barrier to entry is super low. It's super low, right? I mean, I don't recommend it, but you can start it on your phone if you wanted to, right? With the mic and all this, and Anchor, wherever you want to go. So the barrier to entry is pretty low, and I think they think that everybody can do it. Everybody's going to be a Jordan Harbinger or Joe Rogan. It's not going to happen that way. It's not going to happen that way.
Man, look, Facebook right now got so many 85 South clones in all of these groups, like sitting on the couch, they smoking, they drinking, and they not funny.
Mm.
And it's not the same because they don't understand. Like they talked about what they were going to do before they jumped on camera. Of course, it's improv. They comedians. They're
Right.
professional improvers.
Right.
You're not a professional improver. You're trying to be a podcaster. Pick your job.
So go ahead, Michelle.
I think the problem is we have simplified the technicalities of podcasting. So yes, the barriers are very low because you can record. As phones have become sophisticated, the barriers have become lower, right? Because now you can audio record and all this kind of stuff on your smart device. Another thing is we have stated, oh, we're just having a conversation. Well, I'm having conversations with my friends all the time and we're funny.
To you guys.
Right?
to you, right? I'm sorry. I thought I know you're gonna say that part, but I just thought I'd add that in there.
Yeah, of course. But I think that's the problem, right? When, at least as a woman, when I'm with my girls and we're surrounded by wine and cheese, we are funny, we are having a good time, and we think we can translate this private conversation into a podcast. And it's the same for guys, especially all of the relationship podcasts. Okay.
Yeah. That's a whole nother episode. We gotta
Right. So I think that is the problem. Because phones technology has become more sophisticated. Not just the phones, but even like you said, CL, the software,
Yeah.
right? I know for me, I struggled with Audition. I struggled with a couple of other platforms and I paid someone. And then here comes Anchor. Right. So everyone after 2015 or 16, it just became a little bit easier to podcast. And
Yeah.
I think that's the nature of the beast at this moment.
Yeah. I do believe that, you should try. And I'm not saying that it should be in your wheelhouse. At least for me, I wanted to try to learn how to edit the podcast, and just to try to figure it out. And actually, I got better and better at it. Like, I started with Audition. I started on my iPad, recording right into my iPad, right into Adobe Audition, right? And it was super easy. But then as I started to grow in my journey in podcasting, I started to invest, in different equipment, right? And so you start to invest in different equipment. Now, hold up for a second, I need my audio to be good. And then I found Hindenburg Pro. Um, it was Hindenburg Journalist Pro, which is a DAW that it's a little pricey, but it's non-destructive, and it is super simple. And honestly, for me, it's super simple. If I can freaking use it, like anybody can, because I'm not trying to do anything that's going to cause me to go too crazy with it. But it's actually pretty simple. And I actually do my shorter podcasts, my little 10 to 15 minute ones. I do them myself. My longer ones, I send that out. But here's the one thing that I want to talk about too, because I think a lot of people don't think about it in this way. You think about all the actors that are out there, the Denzels of the world, the Sidney Poitiers of the world, right? And just could you imagine if they didn't work on their craft, if they just said, I'm going to be an actor, and then just go to auditions and didn't do anything, didn't do any legwork, didn't do any prep or any of that stuff, do you think that we will be talking about them today? And I liken that to I think podcasting is a craft. I firmly believe it. I don't think it's just something to do. I think it's an art form when it's done really well, of course. And then we can see it's almost like I'm from New York, right? So, one of my first watches that I bought that I really liked was a knockoff Tag Heuer. And that joint, I bought it and it turned my wrist green. The real ones don't do that, right? I just think about, like, you got the people out here who are really, bought into podcasting. Then you got the ones that are not, and they're going to be found out over time, because I firmly believe it's a craft. What are your thoughts on the idea that podcasting is a craft?
Oh, I said, don't get me started on that.
No, man. That's
It
why I asked the
is.
question.
It is. Go for it.
I mean, all right. I guess let me pull myself together, because when you start talking about podcasting and the art form of creating an audio experience, this is like, kind of like books on tape.
Mm,
This is a Richard Pryor album. These are things that you are ingesting for its entertainment value, informational value, and it usually needs a bit of production in order to make it seem like it's not just you talking.
mm,
And that's why anytime you pick up a old or any audio book, like Will Smith, for example, Will Smith's book is fantabulous as a audio experience.
mm,
Everything hits your ears and you're immediately captivated. Now, of course, Will Smith, trained actor, but it has the music, it sets the scene. Everything about that book is like it's making love to my ears, basically. And
you need a
when I
cigarette
hear
afterwards.
right, you know, and when I think about podcasts right now, I don't hear a lot of people emphasizing the audio experience.
Mm,
Now, I'm from back in the day. There's a few podcasts I think some people might have heard of. One called The Champs.
mm.
That was by what's my man name? Co-writer of Chappelle's show. I'm just blanking on his name. Um, Good grief, I can't believe
It's all right. It's all right.
Neil Brennan. Neil Brennan.
Okay.
Yes, Neil Brennan. Neil Brennan had one of the original podcasts with him, another comic, and a DJ. And the DJ would be dropping in sound effects and all these different things at certain times. And it just created an experience that I could not get anywhere else in podcasting.
Mm.
And I rarely see anything close to that, which is why I might, try to do it in the future. But I really want that type of stuff to start coming back, because right now with YouTube in the game, it's like I gotta get my light right, I gotta get the backdrop right, I gotta, look good, what my fit looking like. It's so much other stuff that video requires that audio gets neglected.
Come on, come on,
So
preach.
I mean, we at a crossroad, man. So I just want people to understand that if you're going to start a podcast, let's start making some audio experiences.
Michelle, you look like you wanted to chime in.
So a couple of things. I do think podcasting is a craft. I also think people underestimate the difficulty of podcasting,
Yeah,
because on the surface you're like, oh, I'm having a conversation, be it an interview or with your friends, but it's really about what happens after those 45 minutes
yes,
of the conversation,
yes.
right? So a couple of things. Interviewing is a skill,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we look at all of the media journalists, Barbara Walters, anything on ABC, CNBC, whatever, right? Those individuals went to school
Mm-hmm.
for media. But interviewing, I'm not saying you have to go to school, but interviewing is a skill.
Agreed.
And the prep behind that is, reading books that your guests may have written, watching other interviews, maybe try to ask some different questions. I don't know. That's a noble idea. Like, what's going to make your interview different than everyone else, right? Especially if they're doing a media run.
Correct.
And then you got the second part of that. It's like, okay, everything CL said, right? The production side of it. So that's the technical skill that goes behind it. I just did a podcast interview a couple of weeks ago. It hasn't been released yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I did a 1 hour video. It was probably 75 to 90-minute interview, and they're only going to use 20 minutes because it's a story.
Right.
But and this is a business podcast. And usually when I'm asked to do an interview, I say yes, and then I listen to the show.
Right.
And the production's incredible for them to take business topics and to create a story behind it. And they're interviewing, 2, 3, 4 people at a time about this one particular topic, but they're putting the different perspectives
Right.
to format the story. Now that takes time.
Correct.
Right. And I think when we get to that point, especially as far as Black people, who has the time and the money to put into that? Right. Because they had a whole train
Correct.
emailing me, production.
Yeah.
They just had their stuff together when they reached out to me. I was like, oh, y'all got a team. Like,
Yeah, you got a squad.
Yeah, you had one person send the email. Once I agreed, another person was like, okay, I'm gonna pick it up from here. Oh, I'm just doing production, but I'm, CC'd, and well, I'm just listening because eventually I'm gonna write the script. And
Right.
oh, I'm just gonna ask you the questions.
Mm.
And it was
Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
So then we get into talent, manpower, time,
Correct.
financial resources. And I think stuff like that, we can get into the challenges of that Black podcasters face, right? Because doing a rant or doing an interview or having a conversation with friends, that's low hanging fruit. And yes, there's work behind it, but I'm in a position where I can neglect the whole creative process.
Correct. And I love what you said about studying, right? Studying people that are either going to be on your show, or more importantly, your own content that you're trying to put out. The tendency a lot of times is that we will have this idea of what it is that we think people will want to listen to. And when we don't get the listenership, then we feel that, oh, this podcasting isn't working. It sucks. It's broken. No one wants to listen to it. And that's why Black people don't podcast, all this other stuff. And we go down this super crazy rabbit hole where we haven't even done the upfront work. When I got back into podcasting, it took me about 6 to 8 months after like studying and listening to more and more podcasts and really kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. And here's the crazy thing. And when I thought I figured out what I want to do, it was wrong. Because when I came back, I started this podcast called The Worthy Podcast. Ooh, that's so original. That's my last name. And yeah, super creative, right? I should have called one of you guys. And it was a podcast I thought about executive coaching, and I start touching all these stuff. Yeah, it was the content was great, but the direction and the audience was wrong. So guess what I did? I got a podcast coach. And to your point around, studying and doing all these other things, right? He walked me through, I walked him through all of my experience and different things. And he said, well, hey, I see you got all this like retail experience, like, leadership and, executive stuff. Yada. And I was like, yeah, 2 weeks ago, somebody had told me to start a podcast on retail. And I was like, I'm just going to wait, And he said, well, hey, I got a project for you. Next week. Charlie Valher, he's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. He's over in Australia. Good dude. He said, I want you to come back next week with 13 episodes and for retail. And I was like, dude, I was trying to wait to do that. I came back with 40. And I kid you not, the clarity that I received from that little assignment on what it is that I wanted to do. Here's the rub. Here's what happens with people. I apologize. I know as the host, I'm supposed to be asking you these questions. I'm going to go on this rant because y'all went on y'all rants. Is that when I wanted to switch from The Worthy Podcast to Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy, I had all this like, oh my gosh, what about this? What are they going to say? Who's going to say? And I was on a walk and something hit me and it said, Steve, you're not that big. Steve, no one cares. Like, you're not, who are you? You're not Joe Budden. You're not so-and-so. You're not. And I was just like, who are you talking to? They're talking to you. And once I got past myself, I realized that once you niche down and you figure out what you really want to talk about, like there is so much more clarity. And I said all that to say is because everything that you guys are talking about, the creative process, I think we skipped some steps and we just try to put something out there. And what we put out there really isn't our true self because we're copying other people. Oh, I could do that. They're just sitting on the couch chilling. We can do that. But that's not the case. Oh my gosh. All right, I'm sorry, my rant. I'm sorry, my rant.
Good, man. That was actually a pretty good story. Because the moments of clarity are key for the creative adventure.
100%, man. 100%. All right, let's move into the creator economy and how it associates with the African American Marketing Association, right? So a lot of people have heard that term before, creator economy. But I want to know, I like definitions and I like to just kind of set the foundations and kind of build on things if you haven't noticed that. Walk me through what your definition of a creator economy is as well. Then we'll move it to what the African American Marketing Association does to kind of help those creators. Michelle?
I think the creator economy consists of any person or organization that gets paid from the content that they make. So that may range from blog post, podcast, video, brand deals that you earn and create content through your preferred platform. I don't like saying social media as a platform. I think it's more of a distribution channel, but people are getting paid on those platforms or because of those platforms.
So I guess another question, can anybody be a creator?
Yes.
Should everybody be a creator?
No.
CL, what's your definition of creator economy? I'm dude, I'm right there with
Man, when I think about the creator economy, I think about content being um, commoditized. I think that's how you say that word.
you. Commoditized.
Commoditized. There you go. I didn't. I only went
Did I
to
say it right?
general,
I don't even know if I said it right.
you know, but you knew what I was talking
I know
about,
shit.
you know. But that part of it, I think, is what's driving what we are calling the creator economy,
Mm,
because you have what people are doing with content, making money, but there's also the industry of making the content.
mm.
So everybody that's making cameras, microphones,
Come on.
box lights,
Come on.
software, um, automations, all these different things that help you make content. Like, how many different AI copywriter ads have you seen on Instagram lately?
Man.
They're out here trying to get you in because they know people need content. And then you got your boy Gary V out here being like, make 100 pieces of content a day. You like, how, bro?
Yeah.
Like, where's the team? But I'm not gonna talk about that part. But you get what I'm saying.
Man. Hold on for a sec. All right. So yeah, I got a little DJ in me from back in the day. So, okay. You just hit something, and I don't want to gloss that over. You started talking about the idea around not just the content, but the people that have to, the products, the services, and all of that are kind of like the underlying piece. Could you kind of go a little deeper into that, because I think people are missing that point of this whole process.
Okay, so I would just stick to podcasting. But let's look at Spotify. Spotify has bought up like half the podcast industry
Mm-hmm.
just because people need the services. They bought Anchor, now they got the Green Room, which was a different app before. Um, they're even getting into like hardware. Um, and then you have people like the on the acquisition side. And
Mm.
I know this is kind of like getting off, but
Nope.
even just looking at like we talked on the podcast last week, the Athletic got bought by the New York Times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it like a creator base, like you got a whole bunch of people making print content, and you're bringing them in so you can get more readers into your ecosphere, so people can, basically double down. You're trying to get these people to buy subscriptions, come to the events, get the merch, sign up for this other service. You got your affiliate links. Everybody is trying to get people in an audience
Mm.
of their preferred amount. And so, what do you need to do to get people there? You need the content. Well, how do we get the content? We need people to make content. Well,
Yeah.
let's give them tools so they can make the content,
Yeah.
and then we'll get it. And it's just building a feeder system.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Man. So okay, man. Okay. You got me. You got
Very,
me started.
very good points. Very good points.
Amazing points. Amazing points. Because here's the one thing that I see a lot too. And Michelle, you said that you watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube too. Study it and then try to do some certain things, and I'm like, nah, I don't like that piece. But what I've noticed when we start talking about new products like cameras or whatever it may be, there are not a lot of Black content creators out there that will get that camera first, that will get that camera to present, out there, whether it's under embargo or whatever it may be. And you will see, of course, the potato jets of the world, Peter McKinnons of the world, all these bigger name people. And you call him Tight Shirt Terry. I can't remember his name. And no, he's another content creator, he's a Black dude, but he's actually really good. He's probably one of the only few. Of course, MKH DB, he's in his own atmosphere, if you will, right? But I think about what you're talking about as it relates to the actual products, the products and services that are pushed out there into the creator economy, and I don't see a lot of Black people that are actually on the front lines, if you will, that actually have the products, and the companies that are coming to the product are coming to them and actually being able to ones to have a face and push it out there. I don't know if you guys are seeing that or not. in your overall marketing research or anything like that? If you don't, that's fine. I just wanted to have a conversation about that one too.
I don't really see that too much. Like when
I
it comes,
don't.
No, okay.
yeah, when it comes to software stuff, I don't see that. What about you, Michelle?
I don't see it too much, but I think it's a catch 22. I think a couple of things, right? So
Yeah, go for it.
we have a couple of issues in regards to this. Um, we'll take a fashion vlogger, for example. She may buy the latest camera and software or even hire a team or whatever the case may be, but she's so ingrained on being a fashion vlogger,
Mm,
she'll probably only do one video about her equipment and her setup, and that's it.
right.
We've been taught to niche down. So anything outside of fashion, she's probably not going to touch it
Correct.
unless she's getting flooded with questions from her audience about her actual setup.
Correct.
And then, of course, maybe have the Amazon affiliate links. So I think part of it is when people niche down, they're afraid to do things outside of that unless they
Mm-hmm.
do a complete pivot. The second thing is I last year I was trying to be like a business influencer
Mm-hmm.
somewhat. It just seemed really hard for some reason,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And maybe I didn't stick with it. I probably didn't stick with it long enough. So that's another thing. But I think another problem is on the brand side, brands want you to have X amount of followers before
Mm-hmm.
they even consider you.
Correct.
So if we go back to the fashion blogger thing, it's like, oh, well, she has 50,000 followers, right? She has the attention. I'm paying for the attention.
Correct.
Versus someone like, well, Michelle, she's a business influencer, but she only has 5,000. I don't know. So I feel like there's a lot of that going on
Yeah.
too. And I
Agreed.
think those are the challenges when we get into, I guess, the hardware and software um, that we need to create content.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think the downloads, right? So, to kind of bring it back a little bit to the podcast piece, and I wanted to get your perspective, both of you guys, on downloads, right? Because since we're talking about all these different platforms and all the different vanity metrics, if you will, followers, subscribers, all these different things, and obviously they matter in certain instances. But when you think about podcasting, the course, the holy grail, for even brands to want to start talking to you, is they say you have to have 10,000, downloads or whatever per episode, not per month, but per episode. How much should podcasters focus in on downloads? And if they should focus in on downloads, at what level should they be at?
Great question. You want to start, Michelle?
I mean, this is a tough one for me because I feel like my numbers have always been low compared to what is glamorized. Okay, I don't know, whatever. But
Glamorized. You had it right the first time. You got it.
um, and then especially I don't even I don't know the numbers for marketing for the culture. I don't even log into Lipson courtesy of CL. So thank you. But when I had my networking with Michelle podcast that I did for 5 years, there were some episodes that were better than the average, meaning once you remove celebrity culture,
Mm-hmm.
I was probably getting 300 to 400 listens per episode,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and I was like, okay, and I feel like I had some great people. I had Lamar Tyler, Gary V, Kirk Franklin, like,
Yeah, Gary
I,
V.
man, listen, I heavy hitters, okay,
That's awesome.
heavy hitters.
There you go. There you
Like
go.
even for marketing for the culture, I was fortunate to interview Guy Kawasaki a couple of
Oh,
weeks ago,
yeah, I saw
right?
that one. That was a great interview. Great interview.
So thank you, right? But we ain't going viral over here.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So So it's hard to say, but I will tell people this: if you're starting a podcast, try not to look at your numbers for the first 6 to 12 months, unless you just have something totally out the park that I don't know, that goes viral or something. But try not to get consumed with your numbers. You need a podcast like no one's listening to your show.
Mm,
Another thing is, when it comes to some of these big names, they're probably going to turn you down because they're waiting for you to be consistent. They're they're waiting for you to hang in there. They're
come
waiting
on.
for social proof.
Come on.
And he's like, okay, I've been podcasting for a year, 3 years. They're like, oh, okay, there's some substance to it. Regardless of your numbers, depending on your relationship with the person, and you can create relationships in different ways. So it's hard. I think you have to figure out why you're doing it, what's important to you. Um, and even if you have small numbers, if you're really niche down
Hmm.
and you know your target audience and brands that you can target, you know, they'll support you.
Yeah,
You just have to have your stuff together.
it's good. Good stuff. Good stuff. CL?
Well, I want to go back to something that you said earlier
Hmm.
when you was making the transition to the retail podcast, which is you figured out that nobody was really paying attention to you, so it
Hmm.
didn't really matter.
Hmm.
And I want a lot of people to understand that it's a process, for one, to get to wherever you're trying to go. And I'm gonna steal this quote because I can't remember who the guy was, but he said you need to make 100 crappy YouTube videos.
Oh,
You don't need to make like 100 crappy podcasts.
Orlando, not
Yes,
Orlando, Roberto Blake.
yes. And he put that in my head. I'm like, that's probably the best way to describe how you do a podcast,
Mm,
because your first 10, they're probably not going to be that great.
yeah.
Your next 10, it might be a little bit better. The next 10 should be getting to the point where you feel like you know what you're doing.
Hmm.
And around like 50 or 60, you should be hitting your stride.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's usually how it goes. And anybody who's worried about downloads in the first 2 or 3 years, you need to ask yourself a question. Who are you?
Yeah.
Because anybody who has had rapid growth in a podcast was somebody before they turned the microphone on. Whether or not they were a celebrity
Mm,
doesn't matter. Because if I take a journalist who has people that read their stuff, those readers are going to listen to that podcast. If I have someone who is a major part of a community and they make a news headline every once in a while, they turn on the podcast, people are going to download that podcast.
mm,
So you really need to figure out who you are and figure out what's your goals before you start talking about the download statistics. Because the only reason we're talking about that is because you can get the advertising and the sponsorships and all the sexy brand deals, but it's money out here in
mm,
podcasting before you even get to the point of growing it. Like
mm.
Michelle said, you show some consistency, put your podcast in a few different places. I mean, a lot of people don't like to go local, but you could podcast local and probably make more money than
Yeah.
trying to appeal to the entire world.
Right.
Like not alone the United States. Like just look for somewhere you can make some money, because if you got 1,000 and the pizza shop down the street is trying to get some ads off,
Right.
they might want to fool with you.
Yeah.
It's a mom and pop. They don't have a big advertising budget, but they say, hey man, you give us a promo code, 20% off a pizza, and we'll see what happens. If you get 100 people to buy pizzas, you're gold to that pizza chain.
Yeah.
Like 100, that's it.
Yeah.
Like this, we got to start thinking smaller about how we can achieve things in small numbers.
Another
Go ahead.
thing I would like to add, I think lots of times, whether it's podcasting or even social media, we tend to talk about these things because we want a direct transaction, right?
Mm, mm,
Because people are like, well, how much money have you made off of Instagram? Nothing, because I don't sell anything off of Instagram,
right.
right? But I charge In my consulting agency or consulting firm, I don't take anything less than $5,000 a month,
Hmm.
right? But what does that mean, right? When they read my bio, oh, you host a podcast, you ran 2 books, you ran 2 white papers. Like podcasting helps the holistic,
Correct.
my holistic brand,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Especially back in 2014, 2015, when I just dropped my book and I'm trying to get these speaking gigs and they read my bio or go to my website, oh, you have a podcast? Because it was so new.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like what was that thing that set me apart? Like you have a book and a podcast? Your podcast is a spinoff from your book?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like sometimes your money is not gonna be the based off of ad revenue that
Right.
you hear everyone talking about. It might come indirectly, through whatever. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay.
The money might come indirectly with whatever you're selling, as far as your products and services.
Because you guys both just crushed it. So when I think about downloads, the one thing that I think people don't take into consideration, and so while I look at downloads, and my monetization doesn't come from sponsorships, it comes from my coaching business, right? If I'm able to get a coaching client, one coaching client from it, they pay for everything for all of my podcast stuff for the whole year. Like, so if I got one, which it's been awesome. That's for me from a monetization standpoint. But the thing that I have an issue with the downloads, when people get fixated on the downloads, is because, how many people are actually listening to your content? How much of the content are they actually consuming? So they can download, or you can get the automatic downloads and and your numbers look great, depending on which platform that you use. And the downloads are automatically put into because you just subscribed or follow. I don't know what the new term is nowadays. I think it's follow now. They don't want subscribe, right? But that gets pushed directly. But how much are people actually listening? Right? And so I think about consumption. I think about if you can go into your Apple Connect and actually look at a podcast episode and see that people are actually listening to, 50, 60% of your podcast. Now, for me, that's more telling, for me, more information than it is the download, right? And if you're doing it, if you see it consistently, so that's one of the reasons where, while I actually changed, formats from the Worthy Podcast to Retail Leadership, because I saw some inconsistencies and I was like, man, they're dropping off at this number. And then I went back and I listened and I was like, okay, because I probably went down this whole different road. But the consumption piece is something that's I think is more important, because you want people you don't podcast so no one can listen. Right. And I think people just want to podcast just to podcast. They need to podcast for the consumption value of your content, and not just get so focused on the download. So to CL's point around going local and trying to do things to kind of streamline your podcast, to go out there and think about, getting some local content or local, sponsorship. I think it's ideal, but we get so focused on, Sony. Dude, you got 150 downloads. Sony ain't coming for you. Nike ain't coming for you. Jordan ain't coming for y'all. But y'all think that's what's going to happen. So anyway. So y'all get me started, man. I knew y'all was going to get me started. Because, I watched too much of your stuff. So I knew you guys were going to get me going down these little, I created the rabbit holes because I listened to your stuff. So I was like, I'm going to poke the bear in a couple of these things and get them going. And you guys have not disappointed as well. The African American Marketing Association, right? When you think about your impact, and we're going to close with this with this question, because I wanted to keep it to an hour. We're going to close with this one. I want you guys to talk about where you guys are right now in your growth stage, and where do you see yourself? I know it sounds like an interview question, right? 5 years from now, and the impact that you want to have on the actual community, the African American community. I'll start with CL. I'm gonna let Michelle go last on this one.
Okay. So I think from a, I guess, a content standpoint, I would like Alma to be able to help people identify themselves as marketers.
Mm,
Because if you make content and you want it to be seen, you are a marketer.
mm,
Point blank, period. You want an audience, you want somebody to do something with it, you are trying to sell an idea. So anytime you decide that you want to put something out there, remember, you are marketing and you need to tighten up when it comes to your marketing. So I want AMA to be the place where you can figure out that you are a marketer and here are the things that you can do to always help yourself in the future.
excellent, excellent, excellent. What you got,
Amen.
What you got, Michelle?
Oh my God, that was really good. So Alma started in February 2019, and even in that short amount of time, so much has changed within marketing and then technology. Currently, we have probably about 500 members from all backgrounds, professionals, meaning corporate, freelancers, entrepreneurs, and the assumption is those people are creating content, right?
Mm,
But not necessarily content creators thinking they're marketers, which I give CL a lot of credit for because we've been having those discussions a lot lately. Um, my mission, my personal mission, as well as Alma's mission, is about the education and economic
mm,
development of Black people,
mm,
period. My vehicle is the Marketing Association. Right. So 5 years from now, there's a lot because there's a lot happening right now. So we're
mm-hmm,
working on a conference, right? So if the conference goes well, I would like it to be a signature event.
mm,
So anything, one thing we started last year was the top 50 Black marketers list.
mm,
And that came from 2018 when Brand Week created their power list. There's no Black people on the list.
mm,
And out of 100 people, there was only 10 or 11 women,
mm.
right? And I was like, oh, we need a list. We can do the list through AMA,
Yeah,
right? So members can come here and hopefully find the resources that they need, the career opportunities that they need. But at the same time, I want Black marketers to be acknowledged for their work, right?
mm-hmm,
Whether you're a strategist, podcaster, or let me say content creator, designer, whatever the case may be. So 5 years from now, I really want to keep a lot of that going, but I want the brand recognition to grow. Because we're already at year 3, so five more.
that's
That
right.
ain't too far off. So, but yeah, I wanted to be by year, I guess year 8 in this case, I wanted to be a worldwide brand. I've spoken to hundreds of corporations, Home Depot, Walgreens, HP, I'll call all of them out. And they're like, you're too small.
Mm,
And I'm
Mm.
like, you're missing out. Right? You're missing out. Cause mentally, like
you're a giant.
I'm on some other stuff when it comes to vision,
Yeah.
right? So you want to be a passenger or you want to be in coach, like in the wagon? But like, what you want to do?
You gonna be with the luggage?
Like,
You gonna be down there with the luggage, or you gonna be certain where you gonna be? All right. So
listen,
I was trying to keep this to an hour, but you just
nah,
said
let's
too
keep
much good
going.
stuff. You just said
And
too
we
much
gotta
good.
we gotta answer Samantha's question too.
I'm about to. I'm about to.
Okay,
We
okay, we
we
got you,
got
girl.
okay. You know what? Let's answer Samantha's question real quick. Let's do that. She's not a podcaster, and very new to YouTube. She's heard from a lot of people that she should actually start a podcast. What is a recommended strategy to make the transition, or if I should? Good question.
Hmm. It's
Go
actually a
ahead,
very
CL.
good question. I think the best thing to do if you already doing YouTube, find you a simple way to clean up your audio and and just strip it. Now, excuse me. I'm not sure exactly what level of production the video is,
Hmm.
but if you can create your content while keeping the listener in mind, then you should be able to make a podcast out of whatever you do on YouTube, which I don't see all the time. People just make stuff for YouTube and it doesn't translate.
Correct.
So that would be my main thing if you're going to make a transition or add that to your portfolio.
100% agree.
I agree. And if you do that, just try to make sure you have your systems and processes in place. Um, yeah, whatever your workflow is, just make sure you have that in place to incorporate that new podcast step. It's going to be more than one step, but you want to make sure you get that down.
No, agreed. And I think that's your point is so well taken, CO, around, my podcast coach, he told me this a long time ago when I was doing live streaming for Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy. He said, Steve, it's either going to be a podcast or it's going to be a live stream. And that's it. That's what he told me. And I can't wait I can't, and now he's making video podcasts. So I'm going to bust his chops when I have him on my show. He gave me that. But I understood what he meant. He meant it in the context of all the audience engagement. If you start to get the audience engagement, and then you put it into the actual audio format, and like let's just say, oh, that's a great question. That's a great question, Samantha. And the person who's listening to this in the audio format, they're like, what is the question? Like, what did they ask? I have no clue. I'm lost. And so having a good run of show that's actually going to, help you, translate whatever it is that you're going to do from a video standpoint or live stream standpoint, strip out the audio or something like that. That's the direction that you want to go as well too. Okay, Michelle, you said a couple of things back there, man, about the about AAMA. AAMA. You'll jack me up too. I'm just messing with you. You talked about Black community and your passion for helping them and helping us grow and kind of understand things a lot differently. Where did that? I know you're Black because people don't. This ain't gonna be the audio podcast. It's just gonna be video. So you're Black on screen. So it is what it is. And that from Cameroon.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I remember. We were talking about African Cup of Nations as well too. So where does that passion for what you're doing kind of stem from, and how do you help other people? I know sometimes you can't help people with their passion, but how do you help educate more and more people to kind of have some sense of understanding of what you're trying to do, in a broader context?
Oh man, that's tough. There's some personal reasons
Hmm.
behind me being a capitalist,
Hmm.
right? So there's some personal reasons behind that. But as far as the community, I think it's when Trayvon Martin
Hmm.
died, and I was in my 20s. I don't know how old I was, but I was in my 20s. So when you're in your 20s, um, late 20s, early 30s, there's just a greater sense of awareness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe you have a little bit of education, you have a little bit of money, a little bit of independence. And when you start receiving those things, now politics makes sense,
Mm.
right? You see where politics are applied in your day-to-day life.
Hmm.
And I just became aware,
Mm.
right? Became more aware about all things Black.
Mm.
Outside of having fun and having a good time, and it was like, okay. So I think my first purpose that I realized, I know I'm here to provoke thought.
Hmm.
I think I
Hmm.
just have
Hmm.
interesting perspective.
Yeah.
I'm very logical. So I've always known that. I've always led with that. And then eventually I was like, oh, I'm here for the education and economic development of Black people.
Mm, mm,
So, how do I do that? I started off with networking, started with marketing. I have a degree in finance,
mm-hmm,
worked in corporate finance for a couple of years. In 2011, I tried to start a nonprofit called Financial Achievement,
mm,
where I just wanted to teach financial literacy. And what I realized when I was volunteering with the white people, there's just a disconnect. And that disconnect is the trust gap,
mm.
right? We don't Black people don't trust people in general, let alone outside of our race. So we had mentors and mentees. Well, I was a mentor, so I had mentees, but then you had the Black mentees coming to me, and I was like I appreciate you talking to me, but I can't be responsible for all of this, right? 'Cause, then we get into capacity. So just learning through that, and then I was like, well, I can do it myself. I have this financial background, and I couldn't. I was just too green. I was
Mm,
just too green.
mm.
But that was kind of like the engine that could, and just evolving over life. And eventually I found myself back to marketing. And it's just kind of grown and blossomed from there.
You know, one of the things that's interesting is because as a young Black man, myself, just honestly, if I can be very honest, like spoiled because I was the youngest of seven and didn't know too much and didn't really. I grew up around everybody, and to be honest with you, up in New York, so as much as I wanted to say that, oh my gosh, I never, I just because you grew up around everybody, you still experience the measure of racism as well. And it wasn't until I was in the Air Force where I actually went abroad several times, several times. I had the fortune of doing that and being able to see the world differently, and then also to see how Black people are treated in different countries compared to the states. And the interesting part, a lot of people probably don't know this, but the interesting part was that I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and we didn't have a lot of TV. We didn't have access to a lot of things, and I remember us coming back from Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and we stopped in Ramstein Air Force Base, layover till we came back to the States, and we were in the cafeteria eating, and I look up at the TV, and there is Rodney King being beat by 10, 11 officers, and here it is. I just came back. I'm on my way back from serving my country, survived 35 different Scud attacks, um, working on planes to help, right? And here I am coming back to this in this world. And so, regardless of all the different experiences that I've had abroad, I live here, and it was just very difficult as a young man. But as I continue to get older and look a little bit wiser, I realized that just like you were just talking about, you become, you become aware of certain things that you're almost compelled to help people that look like you, that to help them understand that there is a better way, and that yes, you're going to have struggles and challenges, but that's just part of the man. We've had that for centuries. It's just part of who we are. That's just what we do, and helping us kind of understand like we're here to help other people. Told you guys, get me started again. You get me started. I don't like you guys. Yeah, you guys aren't coming back. You, you guys aren't coming back because y'all get me going. So yeah, what you got? Share something. Share something on that, man. I apologize. I went on another rant. I think that's my fourth one this interview.
Man, you good, man. And honestly, bro, I got time. As long as you got time, I'm here for the ride. And I mean, if you don't want me to come back, I ain't gotta come back.
Come on.
But definitely will come back, kick it with you, Steve, because you talk some good stuff. Um, you know, thank you for your service for one.
No.
We give you that shot right there. But I guess I will say that similar to Michelle, I have found like a bit of my calling and been trying to funnel that through podcasting.
Mm.
And I want to help, especially Black people. But I just want to help people just look at things different
Mm.
and I think it may have been just something in the air in those like 2012, 13, 14, because I had the same feeling. Like I had unique perspectives when I talk to people and they're always learning from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to expand on that possibility of just helping other people learn, open their mind up, think of new ways to look at stuff. And across that journey, I really got into mindfulness, consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk a lot about the law of attraction. I'm actually working on a project called Minecraft, where I'm putting a lot of energy and time into mindfulness.
Mm.
And I really want people to just understand that when we start talking about certain things, it's like, I want this to come to your ears and I want you to actually have a thought that you would not have had before, or I did not do my job on the microphone.
Yeah. 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 Dude, I said this so many times. I don't think people get it. Your content, your content is there to move people forward, right? Your content is also there, I firmly believe, for a season in a person's life, right?
Yes.
I think about, I use retail leadership, for example. Regional directors, district managers, store managers, those are the ones that I focus on and coach, and they consume my content. And my job is to help move them through that career journey where they could become an executive. Now they may not need my content, that retail leadership. Now they need my coaching to help them get to they help them get to the next level. But the goal is always to push people forward, and not to just kind of hold them in place and to I think feel beholden to you. And I think that's the other tendency why people don't want to niche down, if you will, is because they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm only going to be able to speak to a certain few amount of people. Well, that you are, you really are. You're not called to, I think, to speak to, I mean, you can speak to tons of people, but I'm talking from a podcast and a focus standpoint. And here's the one thing that I've learned and was happened when I told you that story about me narrowing my focus. And once I was able to do that, oh, we lost Michelle. She's going to call back in. I was dropping
Go
too many
ahead.
gems. She had to hang up. She had to hang up. That's okay, Michelle. I see you. I hear you, Michelle. But, I realized was that, we have to make sure that if we're niching down, the more you niche down, the more polished, I think, and presented your content is. And when you do that, you're gonna attract different people. I love what you talked about, and you said it like the law of attraction, right? Talk a little bit about that, and then I want to move into mindfulness, because I think the actually, let's just go into the mindfulness part, because I think there's the law of attraction things kind of go underneath all of that. What is
Right.
your thought process on mindfulness, and why is that such an important part of what you do right now?
Man. And matter of fact, beginning of the year, your big word was intentionality. And a part of law of attraction and mindfulness is the intentionality. Speaking up what you want to happen, speaking on things that you want to, places you want to go, things you want to experience, whatever the life that you decide that you want to design, it's going to start in your head.
Mm.
Nobody is going to be able to tell you what your life is like. If you feel like you don't have much because you live in a small house, then that's your view.
Yeah.
But anybody else is looking at like, you got a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is all about the perspective and where you put your mind at. And so I see a lot of people that just blatantly just keep themselves miserable because they choose to be like that. Now we all know about mental health and all those different things,
Hmm.
but honestly, the thought process that goes into that really starts by being honest with yourself,
Hmm.
being honest with the situation, and actually wanting to see the things that you want in your life so they start coming to you. The law of attraction is like you speak these things out
Mm.
and they just come to you. And it's definitely a real thing because every time
Oh
I
yeah.
look up, I'm like, things are just happening. And I'm like, why is this happening? Because I keep talking about it. I
Mm.
keep telling people, yo, I'm gonna start a podcast, I'm gonna do a business podcast. I was gonna do a business podcast by myself. I didn't think I was gonna meet Michelle, but I told people I'm gonna do a business podcast and it's gonna be fire. And a few months later, here I am producing a Guy Kawasaki interview. I didn't think I was gonna be there, but I spoke it up. And I want to say recently I just found out about the Twitter manifestation campaign,
Mm.
which I think is fire.
Mm.
Whoever in the Twitter marketing department decided that they were going to put Twitter manifestations
Mm.
from people back in the day with their photo now,
Yeah.
Meg Thee Stallion, Issa Rae,
Yeah.
like they killed it
Yeah.
because all these people tweeted out what they wanted to be,
Mm.
and they're there now.
Mm.
It's so genius.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm all about that thought process.
All right,
I
man.
want to
Go ahead.
say
Go for it.
I was well, just a small thing. I was driving today and I saw, or yesterday, and I saw a billboard of Meg Thee Stallion's tweet. So I
Mm.
guess they purchased billboards in various cities as
Oh
well.
wow.
And I was like, give this person a raise. Like,
Yeah. 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 They retired. They're
yeah, give
done.
that marketing team a raise. I was like, they did that. Yeah.
Let's hope
And
let's hope they black. Um, maybe you can have them on your list.
Yo, Twitter be doing that thing with the black community.
They
They
do.
gotta have people in that room, man, because that's the only way they keep hitting it on the nose every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. And when you think about marketing too, right? You, there's been so many mishaps with certain things with companies, whether it's their statements, products, and all the different things. And I chalk it up to they don't have some of the right people at the table, to say, hey Gucci, I don't know if that turtleneck, when you turn it up and it has like the red lips on it, I don't know if did you remember that? You saw that? I don't know if that's going to be a good look. Everybody's, oh, that's going to be awesome. If you put it, I don't think that's going to be a good look. But obviously they didn't have anybody at the table to kind of tell them, or maybe they did, and they just didn't. They just didn't think about it, right? So
no.
go ahead, Michelle.
I mean, that's why I started the association, right? That's why I started AAMA, and that's why I do what I do, because similar to your example, in 2017, 2018, there was a series of just bad campaigns. You had the H&M,
Mm.
the boy with the monkey on the
Yeah,
sweater.
yeah, yeah.
You had Gary V. Media did the campaign for Shea Moisture,
Mm.
when it comes to natural hair care products. And it's like Black women has pretty much built, I forgot the guy's name's business, but now that you've been acquired, you have white passing women
Mm.
in your commercial. Like, and then it was, yeah. And then there was some stuff on the local level. And then Snapchat, they did an ad where it was Chris Brown punching Rihanna.
Mm.
And I'm like, who's in the room? Who approved this? Right. And because you're missing historical and cultural references, right? And I was like, no, this has to stop, So that's what started AMA, one of the things that started it. And then eventually I pivoted my business to focus on inclusive marketing and helping companies with that, um, for a lot of things that you said. But it's funny out here because a lot of companies, they feel like, oh, we're doing a good job with diversity and inclusion. And I'm like, well, I look at it this way. It's a little bit different, but
Yeah.
a lot of education behind it.
Well, they're talking about programs, right? And I did a lot of coaching with some diversity and equity, inclusion leaders, relative to how do they approach, the CEO to get their programs or get their and I call them initiatives, because it's not a program, and it's not a project. A project, that for me, like a program, have a defined beginning and a defined end. And if you approach it in that context, I think that's exactly what happens where it needs to be part of the ethos of the company. So you have to approach it, and just to be very honest, you also have to look at it from the financial side of it too, because if you don't look at it if you just look at it from this altruistic standpoint, a lot of companies aren't going to, CEOs, they're not gonna want to listen. Some will, but you also do have to tie in, I think, and you guys can disagree if you want, in the context of, you do have to provide that financial component to what it is that you're trying to do from a diversity and equity and inclusion standpoint as well. What do you think? Thoughts? No, I'm just.
Yeah, no, you do. I mean, one thing you have to learn how to talk to your audience, right? So, and I'll just say, simply put, if your CEO or your leadership is more EQ, you can say all of the warm and fuzzy things, pull on the heartstrings, and they'll win. But usually, what tends to happen is, especially CEOs and CFOs, they're more analytical. So
Hmm.
you got to talk numbers. So
Yeah.
how can you do the qualitative of DEI? What are the metrics? What are the numbers that you can show? How can you speak to the ROI? And a
Hmm.
lot of people don't know how to do that or distinguish between the two.
Correct. Correct. Okay. All right, man. I'm done talking to you. I'm done talking to you because we can go on for another 2 hours, and so here's I want to close. I want to close first by thanking you guys, and we're gonna have, I was joking. I was super joking about not having you guys back. Really joking. And, CL maybe not, Michelle, yeah. Um, so we'll see about that. No, I appreciate you guys and your candor, and this is why I wanted to have you guys on, because I wanted to open up the eyes of people who are thinking about podcasting, who are in podcasting, or who are in this creator economy, and I wanted them to understand some of the implications that are out there, and some of the different things that they need to talk about and need to think as they embrace and go into this content creator, journey that they're on, because it's going to be similar to probably some of the things that you experience at work, you know. But how do you kind of overcome them? And you guys have given them some really good content and some really good thoughts, things to think about. As as Samantha, and then of course James and people on a replay are going to hear this as well. How can people get in contact with you? Actually, Samantha, she says she agrees. So where can I connect with the guests? So I think she's going to want you guys on her live stream as well. So if you guys don't mind, all their information is actually it's actually should be, it's actually going to be in the comments and everything below as well. So where can people find you guys?
Well, you can get at me at CL Pod Gang, pretty much on any platform: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just my name, CL, last name Pod Gang, just like podcast.
Hmm.
That's like it's my new little moniker. I was CL the main event when I was a rapper,
Hmm.
and so I kept rolling that. So look for CL Pod Gang. You're gonna find something podcast right behind it.
And talk up Podtax real
Yo,
quick.
podcast about to be that wave. So if whether
Can,
it
can you
be,
talk about it, or you got to kill me afterwards? So what?
I mean, I could talk about it, but it's the plane is being built in the sky
Mm,
Mm.
because this thing is totally fly by night. I basically converted my old podcast, the Rundown, into the Podtax network, and I have 3 podcasts that are in pre-production stages,
mm.
and at some point, marketing for the culture will probably be on the feed as well. And I'm also trying to get a few podcasts, like podcasts. I don't even know what they call podcast latent podcasts. I'm like, I don't even know how to say it the right way, but I
Mm.
need a podcast about podcasts. Something
Hmm.
like Podcasters Live would be great. But I know I gotta have something in there for the people who want the real spiel when it comes to putting this stuff together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's kind of my specialty. I'm a computer nerd. A+ certified. I know how to put that thing together, take it apart, put it back together again. Um, and I used to produce music, so that's how I got into the audio thing. So anything you need from, like I said, from a technical standpoint to a creative standpoint, y'all come holler at me.
Building the plane while it's in the sky. I blacked out after that. I don't even know what you said after that. That was dope. That was yeah, I'm stealing that one. Don't get upset. If you
Look, I
see
didn't
it,
make it up.
if you
I
see
stole
it in
it
the
myself.
community, if you see it in the post asking the question, you know, hey, have you ever thought about building your plane while it's in the sky? Yeah, it's too long for a t-shirt, but it would actually be pretty dope. It was like I saw it somewhere. Awesome,
You can have
man.
it.
And Michelle, talk about your books a little bit too, you know, if you don't mind, just a little bit, because I bring people on and I want them to talk about their stuff, because that's a part of this. It's not just, you know, podcasters live stuff. It's about you guys and what you guys are doing and out there as well. So talk a little bit about the books, and
Yeah.
if you will.
I wrote my first book in 2014 called Network, Navigate, and Nurture. So it's a book on value-based networking. In 2017, after Hurricane Harvey,
Mm.
I wrote a second book called Success Undefined, which is really interesting because one thing I realized when I started podcasting, I was like, how do we define success? So I started asking my guests, like, how do
Mm.
you define success?
Yeah.
Because I felt like at the age of 30 something, I've achieved the things I was told to achieve, but I was like, I ain't making the money I thought I was told I was gonna be making. So it's like, how do you define success? And I took those interviews and wrote my second book, right? Repurposing content
Mm.
from podcasting.
Mm.
And then I released an ebook last year called Money Mindset Affirmations, kind of going back to what CL said, law of attraction.
Yeah.
But instead of just having the affirmations, I tell my story. I tell my story in the past 18 months, how my life has changed, how I paid off like 12 or either 12 or $16,000 in debt last year,
Mm.
got a six-figure donation. So it's not just reciting the affirmations, but the application behind it. And then currently I'm working on my new book that will be coming out pretty soon on inclusive marketing, the 5-point framework to inclusive no, excuse me. The book is going to be called Diversity Drives Revenue, the 5-point framework to inclusive marketing.
Diversity drives revenue.
Yeah.
Diversity drives revenue. I mean, that's
Look,
I mean,
look.
they
When
need,
I
they
when I
need to
say
read this.
vision,
I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole, because that's just like, that's a whole nother, well, see, you know what? Here's the thing. And I don't care. I'm going to bite it. I'm from New York and I'm old school. And the title of our next go around, please, guys, as it's on tape, you guys remember this, is going to be Diversity Drives Revenue. That's going to be the title for when you guys come back on,
yeah.
because that is, everybody knows it, right? They know it, but they don't want to talk about it. The marketing stats show the buying power in the Black community shows it. We don't show it as much because we're trying to look too busy looking like we're rich, and we're not. And we have to. I'm sorry, man. Sorry, y'all got me. See, this is why I don't.
I mean, it's a lot. Listen, let me tell you something.
like you guys.
I was in Atlanta Monday and Tuesday. I'm in Houston now. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely some truth to all stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of young cats that are millionaires.
Oh yeah.
That we don't even acknowledge.
No,
like they are
100%.
still in the game. Restaurants, real estate.
Yeah.
And he's flashy, but he's not a rapper. He's not an athlete. And I was like, okay. So hopefully, eventually, that narrative will change too.
I think I think it will, right? I think, but you know, I think I don't even think this is a word, but like the influencer economy, just, you know, that's just how we do. We just put economy behind everything, right? This influencer economy has created false narratives, I think, for a lot of people to end up trying to go after and follow, and think that they could actually do this or be this person and all this other stuff too. I just confirmed with a buddy of mine, Chris Williams, and he's going to come on the show. We're going to talk about crypto, and we're going to talk about NFTs. and a subject that I'm not really familiar with, to be very honest. And I just started studying up on NFTs, and it's about that whole value piece and the digital value, property, if you will. And I think that's something that we can address as it relates to monetization and the creator economy, and understanding that the content that you create has value. You may not think it does, but it actually has, and it carries value with you. And then your back catalog of content, if it's evergreen or whatever it may be, has value. And how can you monetize, that, or create, digital value for what it is that you actually put out there. So I'm actually excited to kind of talk to him about that, because I think that's something else that, as in the Black community, we don't really talk about, the new things that are kind of coming up, and we're a little late to the boat. Some of us are, not a lot. I mean, not a lot, some are, but there's a lot of people that are actually out there doing it too as well. So, all right, see, I'm done.
Just one more thing.
Well, yeah, go for it.
One more thing. AAMA, we have an event on Wednesday, February 2nd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we have the CEO, Michael Meslansky. He's the founder of Meslansky and Partners, one of the top marketing and advertising agencies in the country. They're doing campaigns for Procter & Gamble, Starbucks, Hershey's, whatever you're eating, drinking, and probably washing your clothes with. That's who's doing their marketing, right? So this is a big deal to have them come out and speak to us online. So please connect with us on our website, aa-ma.org, our social media platform, AAMA Houston, AAMA Houston, and then my first and last name for all of my personal stuff.
Excellent. Now they can find a link to that event on the AAMA website, right?
Of course.
All right, good.
On
Good.
the homepage.
How much it costs to get in, Michelle?
Free.
There you go.
Right.
There you go. There you go.
Free 99.
Free 99. Free 99.
Serving the people.
Well, once again, I do appreciate you guys coming on. If you want to hang back in the green room for a second, I'm just going to close this out. All right. Cool. Thank you guys.
Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, man. Wow. I mean, if you weren't here for this, and I highly recommend this, and I'm gonna definitely put this out and blast it wherever I can, because I think the conversation that we had tonight was so well needed. Because when we start to think about what it is that you're trying to do, you're trying to create content, and you're trying to add value to people, you're trying to move people forward and move them through their journey and help improve them, which honestly, that's what your content should be doing at its base value. But to understand the role that you play as an African-American in the podcasting industry, understanding that quality matters, understand that podcasting is a craft, understanding that monetization isn't waiting to get 100 or 10,000 downloads. You can actually go out and create value for what it is that you're actually putting together right now. So Podcasters Live, our goal is to help you grow your audience and grow your influence through live streaming. We appreciate all of you guys. Have a great night, and God bless.